Collecting. We as humans physically collect a lot of things, don't we? I've just got home from work and the damn fridge is empty. What are you going to do? You roll up to Sainsbury's, buy yourself 4 cans of Stella, some eggs, water, and whatever else you need to continue to survive. So by design we collect or we die. Collecting, in my humble opinion, is quite the joy really. You take the bus or car, go to a shop, see the thing you want, buy it and display it and admire it, or play with it, sell it, destroy it. You do you. Don't scalp though! Or you could just type it in on Amazon and have your desired collectible arrive to your doorstep. Or be stolen by your neighbour. These stages of waiting for the collectible to arrive or going and seeking it out for yourself is what makes collecting enjoyable. If a million collectibles that you always wanted just magically appeared on your doorstep in 3 seconds, you most probably feel pretty meh and unsatisfied about it. You get some people out there who say, "Oh man, you collect Lego? What a man-child baby! 1 out of 10. To those people I say, you're definitely lacking something in your mind, and you're probably being disrespectful just to bury something that you're insecure about or have been made fun of for. If people want to collect Bret the Hitman Hart merch or have a shrine to Alan Partridge, let them, as long as it's not illegal or hurting anyone. My collection. This is my collection. There's Lego, video games and gaming consoles. I collected Lego mainly because I wanted to make massive brick films like Forest Fire 101 and Keshan. Sadly, I had too many figs and not enough bricks, and I lacked the skill as well. The reason I collected gaming consoles and video games was because I used to game a lot more when I was younger. I suppose the collection to me was nice, but the older I have become, the more and more I find it to be clutter. I can just buy video games on my gaming laptop on Steam. Cheeky discounts, no paying 50 quid for a membership to play games online. No more video game cases taking up space. And that's honestly how I feel about the Lego as well. Just a lot of bricks and minifigures taking up space. However, I digress. I'm probably going to sell most of my collection, to be honest, one day when I get round to it, when life doesn't get in the way so much. However, on to the person I know who refuses to sell any of his collectibles. A good friend of mine, GC. He's by far the biggest collector I know. Look at all of his collectibles. Look at all of this. Look at all his stuff. It's insane, the amount that he has. So, I'm going to have a discussion with him about collecting. What's good, everyone? I am here with George to discuss collecting with him.
Hello.
And give him a few cheeky questions.
Go for it.
All right then. So the first question I have for you, George, is what is collecting to you?
Collecting is enjoyment. I think with collecting is the adventure of finding said item, if that's going to a con or just going down the road to your local shop. It's about the fun and the adventure. Then when you finally have that item, it's yours to have for as long as you want it.
Would you ever sell your collectibles or any of your collectibles? Say if they were worth an absolute fortune one day, would you ever sell it?
I have thought about selling some things over time. Like certain Funko Pops, I have found out that are worth a few £100, but I haven't thought about selling because I like to have a nice big collection. And when it comes to items like that, which have jumped up in price a bit, for me, it's nice to say, look at this item I've got and how much it's gone up by. Like, another one of my collections is Pokemon, and I brought a very special card which James has seen before, and for £15, and now it's over £300. So it's items like that which I think make collections even more special. Well, going back to the original question, would I sell my collection? If I fell out of love with that certain program, show, that's anything, or game, I probably would sell a few things like the Funko Pops, sell the ones that I don't use but I know are worth a bit, but the ones I like the most out of the Funko Pops, I'd probably keep it.
What has made the collection get so enormous? Whatever made it get so massive to the level that it's at now?
Well, the reason it's got bigger is because there's a lot more programs and shows like anime shows or even new products made like Funko Pops. If we go back to 2010, nobody would have known what that is. When it comes to something like my biggest collection being the Doctor Who collection, because of how long it's been going for, being that this year's the 60th year, I've been collecting since 2005. So there's been 5 different versions of the Doctor, who's the main character, who normally has 2 companions, which normally made it into figures as well.
If you had to sell one collectible, George, which one would it be right now if you had to pick?
One collectible right now, it would probably be my popcorn tins.
Out of interest, are they worth a lot, the popcorn tins, or is it just something you get rid of if you absolutely had to?
They can be worth a bit. Like the Wakanda Forever one is around £20. Fast and Furious one, I'd say around the same price. But the Star Wars ones are a bit lower because of the later movies.
This might be the daftest question I've ever asked you, George. In the history of your existence on planet Earth, you might think, what the hell is this? Why are you asking me this for? But do you think at some point in your life you'll ever stop collecting?
To be honest, that actually isn't that much of a silly question. I see a lot of collectors stop at the moment with certain shows, like with Doctor Who. So I think, I don't think I would, even if Doctor Who was destroyed for me, I'd still have other collections to carry on with. My Funko Pop, my Lego. A weird one is my signed items. I have quite a few signed items from TV shows and anime. I met a voice actor and I got a signed photo from her. So I've always liked that signed kind of stuff as well. So there would always be something for me to keep collecting. In a short answer, no, I wouldn't stop collecting.
Fair play, George. Thank you so much for your answers and your time. Fair dues.
Thank you very much.
I found it interesting that George mentioned he has items that have gone up in value tremendously, yet he would only consider selling them if he fell out of love with the product. The main appeal for collecting with George and many other collectors surrounds already existing IPs and having them displayed in your hands, which makes collecting enticing. And I have to agree, when I was a kid, before I wanted to try it out at brick filming, I found it very cool to have a small clone army or a collection of iconic characters in Lego form. And having your own buildable sets of well-known vehicles or buildings from films, TV shows and franchises was very cool. And for George, the monetary value of the collectible just makes him more proud to have the collectible, because it means less people will have it, so it feels more special to him as he is one of the few who owns the item. However, I think it is a missed opportunity to make cash to either save or spend on another collectible. Previously, George has made amazing buys, which he could have made loads of money off of, but he chooses not to. And I'd assume many hardcore collectors have this talent as they're passionate about the products they purchase. If it were me and I made a buy that I knew was going to go up in value tremendously, I'd buy 2, one for me and one to sell, but each to their own. It just appears to be a waste of talent in some aspects. Nonetheless, George shows a lot of passion about collecting and has presented good information in the interview. Now I will have a discussion with a friend of mine who just collects casually for fun, Aaron. And now we're here to discuss collecting with Aaron.
Hello there.
Let's get into this one then. What stuff do you collect, Aaron?
So yeah, I'm not really collecting anything actively at the moment, but I like to pick up sort of PS2 games now and then. Not really the expensive ones. I like picking up sort of obscure games just because I think it's a bit more fun. The price of PS2 games are just through the roof at the moment. I just like picking up the cheap ones. So that's probably the most active thing I collect.
So what would you say is good and bad about collecting?
I think a good thing about collecting is you can sort of preserve the past. So you can, play an original hardware. You can see how the game was originally meant to be played, and you can, just experience it how someone in whatever era that console came out in, how they experienced it.
Would you say the bad side of collecting is then?
I think the bad side of collecting is the cost of it. You're paying almost the same price as a modern day game or like a previous generation console game for a game that is just not worth that at all. I mean, even at retail, they weren't originally meant to be valued this high. And people are making a lot of money off of it because if something's nostalgic, you can make money off of it because someone wants to buy it, someone wants to relive their past. So I think that's the bad side, is a lot of people are in it for the wrong reasons. It's not the most important thing in the world because it's easy to get wrapped up in the hype of, you know, thinking, oh, in 30 years' time, this thing I've got could be worth 10 times as much as what I've just paid for it. But that's in 30 years' time, and it's a big if. I think a lot of the way that collecting is presented is sort of like gambling to some extent. Let's say you bought 10 games that are valuable now, £30 each. You might think in 10 years' time you could get £50 for each one. It's just a bit of a gamble.
Have you sold much of your collection?
Yeah, I actually have. Over the course of about 3 years, I'd picked up a fair amount of stuff. And obviously, I've got quite a small room, so it was all just all over the place, to be honest. One day, I just thought, there's no point having all this. So I just slowly just got rid of a decent amount of stuff. Just sold it to private people and different companies and stuff.
Why do you think someone would be addicted to collecting?
I think I touched on it earlier. I think there is sort of like a gambling aspect to it, similar to the stock market, because if you look at Nintendo cartridges, like N64 cartridges, according to some companies, some of them are worth millions. So if you're gullible enough, or if you think you might have a few of them lying around, you could start thinking, oh, well, I could start selling these and basically just get rich quick. But you could apply it to anything.
In my opinion, the reason why a lot of people would get addicted, say if you're a kid and your parents said to you, you have to keep your room clean over and over and over again, and you've been really, really disciplined. Then when you become an adult, you think to yourself, I can do whatever I want now. I'm going to go absolutely ballistic and just collect every single thing I want to make a mess. Because when you're a kid, you are going to be a bit messy. So if you weren't given that freedom to be a bit messy or have a few toys lying around or whatever, when you're older, you might think, bloody hell, I'm just going to go mad now. It can also come from just feeling like this show or movie or what have you is sentimental to me. I'm going to buy loads of stuff to show how much I love that show. So the final part of the discussion, general thoughts.
I think collecting, it's all right if it's done in moderation, which can be said for basically anything in life. If you've got the space, the most important thing is if you've got the money and if you've got the time and appreciation to actually stop and think what you've actually got, because you might only have two things but they could mean the world to you, and that's amazing, you know, good for you. Or you could have a room full of stuff that overall means a lot to you but individually doesn't really mean that much to you, and that's fine as well, as long as you're not putting yourself into debt and as long as you're not causing harm to someone in some way by buying these things. I think collecting's all right, but obviously if you go too far, it's not good at all. So yeah, I think overall with collecting, if there is something that you're interested in, if something's nostalgic for you, then, and if you get an opportunity to maybe purchase something like that, or if you're given it or you acquire it somehow, then yeah, that's all fair. But you don't have to collect anything. There's no pressure from anyone to buy stuff and fill up your house with clutter. You can do whatever you want. Obviously, don't try and fall into these schemes of making someone rich by spending thousands on practically nothing.
Thank you for your time, Aaron.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Honestly, I have nothing more to add. I hope you enjoyed my takes, George's takes, and Aaron's takes on collecting. I hope you enjoyed the documentary as a whole. Thank you so much for watching, and take care. Have a good one. All the best.